Now, I realize that a large contingent of contemporary mixed martial arts fans are primarily, or maybe not primarily, but at least a very good portion of them, are what we call Johnny come latelys. These are people who are not, really the vanguard of the hardcore, guys like me who actually remembers staying up and watching the scrambled snowflake pay-per-view broadcast of the very first UFC event. The guy who would stay up until like 3 in the morning clicking the Wrestling Observer, trying to get the updates from, all those like Pride New Year's Eve shows. Way back in the day. So I understand that a lot of people, if they just started watching MMA like in 2009 or 2012, obviously they missed out on a huge chunk of MMA history, whereas guys like me, we've been with it from literally the beginning, since 1993. And one of the things that is really interesting to me is there seems to be sort of a weird dichotomy when it comes to the issue of Fedor Emelianenko. Some people are going out there now and saying that he is the most overrated fighter in MMA history. The absolute most overvalued, most overvaunted. He was always just completely, oversold, and really got to discount his entire career because he really didn't do anything. Now, here's the thing about this. If you would have said that like in 2005 or 2006, people would have looked at you like you had a third head, Not even a second head, a third head, that far. Because the condition pick was, not only was Fedor Emelianenko the best heavyweight on the planet, I mean, he was the dude. The absolute baddest man in all of mixed martial arts. And if you look at his track record, I've got to say, if you look at the fights he actually had during his heyday, this is a guy who went undefeated for more than a decade. His first career loss was, and really shouldn't have been a loss, should have been a disqualification against his opponent, was December 22nd, 2000. He had, I don't know, like maybe 20-something fights, almost 30 fights before he had a loss in June 26, 2010. So in between, this guy rattled off, what is it? Oh, geez, yeah, close to 30 victories over a decade. Did not lose at all. And if you look at the guys he fought, I mean, let's cut to the chase. The Pride FC during not 2010s, during the 2000s was definitely a whole lot better than what the UFC had during the 2000s. Really, the UFC heavyweight division really didn't get really decent looking until 2008. That's when he had the influx of Junior Dos Santos and Cain Velasquez, and Brock Lesnar. I think you got to throw him in there as well. But the thing is, before then, who did you have in the UFC division? I mean, who were their heavyweight caliber guys? Frank Mir, Tim Sylvia, Andrei Arlovsky. What else you got? I mean, who else in that division? You had guys like, Wesley Cabbage, Korea. He was fighting. He was in contention for the heavyweight title. That guy is like barely slipping above chemo, but he was up there. I mean, he was getting title eliminator fights. So really, you had guys like Jeff Monsoon getting a title shot as late as 2006, I believe. So yeah, the UFC heavyweight division throughout the decade, call it like it is, really, really bad. Very sparse. Nothing really compared to what Pride had. And I think if you take a look at what Fedor did in Pride during the 2000s, his track record is far more impressive than any heavyweight fighter in the UFC during that time frame. You look at the guys he fought, and another thing about Fedor, even if his fights, were not essentially like one-sided maulings, not all of them were. They're very much of a variety, and he did have a lot of freak show fights, and we'll get into that in a minute. But he just has so many different memorable fights. I mean, these fights where he went in, and if you're wondering where the whole myth of Fedor came from, it's from fights like the one he had against Kazuyuki Fujita, where Fujita is a guy who was named like a top 10 ranked fighter in Pride at the time, comes in there, it staggers him, but Fedor, he rebounds and he submits him like seconds later. And obviously saw that in the fight against Kevin Randleman, where Randleman goes in there, suplexes him, drops him on his neck, Fedor no-sells it, gets up, and then makes him submit to a Kimura seconds later. It's insane things. The guys should not be able to do that. And if you look at just the track record of the guys that Fedor was beating up on in Pride, let's see, we got Sammy Schlitt, who was in the UFC. Maybe not like a title contender, but a guy who was fighting there nonetheless. We had Heath Herring, who was a title contender in the UFC. Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira, who actually went on to become a UFC champion. Who else we got in there? Gary Goodridge, very talented fighter. Mark Coleman, another UFC champion. Who else we got in here? Crow Cop, who at the time was easily like the number 2 ranked heavyweight fighter on the planet. And, Fedor against Crow Cop in 2005, there is not a single bigger heavyweight matchup of the 2000s in that fight. Nothing the UFC had on the docket, save maybe the second Frank Mir Brock Lesnar fight, really compared to that. I mean, that was it. That was the heavyweight fight of the decade. And of course, who else did he fight? He beat Mark Coleman twice. A lot of people forget about that. He beat Mark Hunt, a guy who is like a top 5 UFC heavyweight fighter now. Beat Matt Lindland. And of course, who can forget him not just beating but destroying Tim Sylvia and Andrei Arlovsky, 2 former UFC heavyweight champions or heavyweight champion contenders in 2008. So yeah, Fedor, if you look at his track record, and yeah, he did have the freak show fights against Chong Hong Man. He did have the freak show fights against Zulazino. But here's the thing, even factoring those out, I mean, he's beating legit UFC heavyweight champions. He's beating champions from multiple divisions. He's beating guys that have really long, dominant title reigns. Not only beating them, destroying them, making them look like, real pansies in the process. So the whole idea of Fedor being overvalued or overrated, I think is kind of preposterous. Because he's going out there and taking on the absolute best the UFC had to offer from that time frame and destroying them. Now, of course, once you get past the Brett Rogers knockout, which is one of my favorite knockouts ever, you can actually hear the knuckle landing on skull. It's just insane. It's like a metal baseball bat hitting a home run. Once you start getting into his losses, the Strikeforce era, when you have the loss against Verdun, which was kind of a fluky loss, but still a loss nonetheless, I think if they did a rematch, Fedor would have smashed him. And Fedor was very close to finishing that fight. I mean, he could have landed at least one really solid shot, and that would have taken him out of the equation. And of course, you had the Dan Henderson fight, which is just a war, and I think Henderson, he's in danger of getting knocked out himself. Just a fluky thing happened, and Hendo got the upper hand, and the ref stopped it, I think, a little early. But, those losses, I mean, they were not one-sided. It's not like, Fedor went in there and just got, his hiney kicked from pillar to post. They were competitive. Fedor was close to winning this fight in both instances. The Bigfoot Silva fight is really the worst loss of Fedor's career. Nobody talks about it. He just looked like he did not belong in the heavyweight division. He was fighting at... he's fighting in the heavyweight division, so he's giving up a lot of pounds to Bigfoot to begin with. But to me, that's his worst performance ever. He just looked like a guy who was not ready for combat. So even when you talk about his big 3 losses, nobody ever talks about the one where he really got, the crap beat out of him. And really, that's sort of an oddity in Fedor's career. I think that's really the only time in his career I think he's been just flat out legitimately dominated. And you can say, well, there's a fight against Fabio Maldonado, last summer where clearly the refs kind of threw out some screwball stuff, and Fedor may have gotten sort of a undeserved victory. And you go back to what he was doing before Pride when he fought Ricardo Arona in rings, I believe. Yeah, it was rings, wasn't it? Let me go check here. Oh yeah, it was rings. A lot of people say that Fedor got a gift bag victory there, but even then he wasn't dominated. So this is a guy who's been fighting for since the late 1990s, and over the course of 40 plus fights, only in one of them has he been just flat out dominated from bell to bell. That's a really good ratio. Not a lot of other fighters can say that. And of course, going into this fight against Matt Mitrione, and I'm doing this the day before the fight, so I don't know what happened. This very well could be the last fight of Fedor's career. He'd go in and just get smashed, and that puts the end to his career. Or he maybe goes in there and just gets a huge win and revitalizes his career, and we'll see what happens from there. But just looking at the track record up to this fight, Jeff Monsoon decision, not really impressive. The Satoshi Ishii victory, kind of impressive. He beat him in less than 2.5 minutes. That's impressive. Beat up Pedro Rizos past his prime. Seeing Jadip, not really an impressive victory. It was another freak show fight. So yeah, if you're just judging Fedor by the extent of his last, what we got here, 8 fights, kind of hard to be that impressed. But then you got to go back and look at what he was doing before he came over to the Verdum submission. 10 years of not just resounding dominance, but really flat-out dominance. And nobody came close to beating Fedor for 10 years. This guy was unquestionably the best heavyweight in MMA throughout the 2000s. I think that if you would have put Fedor in the cage against Cain Velasquez or Junior Dos Santos in 2007, Fedor would have beat them both. You put Brock Lesnar in there, I think Fedor would have beat him too. So there's no doubt about that. And by default, the heavyweight fighter, consensus pick, baddest dude on the planet. He's supposed to be able to beat up everybody else in every other weight class. So I think it's pretty much unquestionable. Maybe you can give the nod to Anderson Silva, maybe GSP, but I really do think that Fedor, in addition to not being overrated, was really the best overall fighter of the 2000s. And of course, all great empires must come to an end, and Fedor in the year 2017 is not the Fedor of the year 2005. He's older. I'm not really sure exactly how old he is. I'm going to double check that real quick. He is 40 years old, so he's really edging close to retirement here. He's definitely in the twilight of his career. But you know what? MMA's freaky. You had Dan Henderson and Randy Couture going in there and, fighting up to their like 45. Randy Couture won a title at 40. So you never know. So, clearly Fedor, he's on a downward trajectory, but you can't count him out yet. We'll see what happens with Matt Mitrione. If it's a really, really bad loss, he's going to have to retire. But if he wins, he's in Bellator, number 2 company. You got Bobby Lashley. It's not a really super glutted, heavyweight division, that company. Before the year's over, Fedor could be a champion again. And if Fedor is dominant and things go south in Bellator, which they probably will, Fedor might get a crack at the UFC. And who knows? Stranger things have happened. This could be the end of the Fedor era for good. He finally retires for real. Or it could be the beginning of his second reign. We'll see. Time will tell. Maybe it'll happen, maybe it'll not. But even if Fedor goes in there and just gets destroyed in this fight, his legacy is undeniable. You take a look at the fight against Verdum, the fight against Roger. You take a look at the fight against Zulazino, even if it's a freak show fight. The fight against Hendo. The fight against Mark Hunt. The fights against Mark Coleman. The fights against Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira. The fights against Fujita. The fights against Randleman. And the fight against Crow Cop. This dude has a legacy. He's been in some of the most entertaining fights in MMA history. He dominated the heavyweight division for a decade. He's undisputedly one of the greatest fighters of all time. Not only is he not overrated, I think maybe with the exception of Anderson Silva, John Jones being keep his head straight and actually keep fighting. With those 2 possible exceptions, I still believe Fedor is the greatest MMA fighter of all time. And if you look at the stats, you look at his track record, you look at his comparison points in the UFC at the same time he was dominant, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. Fedor ruled, and he always will.